The crystal wine glasses shimmered under the chandelier of my parents' Victorian mansion, scattering flecks of light across the table as I adjusted my black sweater dress. Simple, elegant, unbranded. The kind of quiet sophistication my family never noticed, too busy chasing flashy designer labels to recognize quality without a logo. I'm Victoria Blake, though to them, I'm still Vicky, stuck in some permanent state of adolescence. At 33, I'm the dropout who walked away from law school and a respectable future to run what they dismissively call a little hobby. The disappointment, the cautionary tale, the girl who chose independence over pedigree. Vicky, darling, my mother called from the dining room, voice laced with concern disguised as civility. Would you mind helping with dessert? And do try to mingle, the Weatherbys are here. And Jonathan just made partner. Jonathan Weatherby, still circling after all these years. The perfect on-paper suitor my mother believed would save me, as if a husband could somehow fix what she saw as broken. I arranged the Christmas cookies onto a silver platter, biting back a smile. The cookies were from a local bakery I'd invested in anonymously. They had no idea. The dining room buzzed with laughter and champagne chatter, relatives, acquaintances, and my parents' social climbing friends, everyone dressed in holiday armor, trading tales of second homes, private schools, and luxury renovations. There she is, Charlotte's voice rang out as I stepped in, her diamond bracelet catching the light with surgical precision. At 35, she was the family crown jewel, a polished wife to a hedge fund manager, mother of 2 prep school prodigies, and a fixture in Connecticut's brunch circuit. I slid into my seat beside Aunt Patricia and Cousin James, both already sharpening their questions. So, Vicky, Aunt Patricia began, her tone soaked in condescension. Still doing that clothing website? It's fashion design, I replied evenly, and yes, it's going well. James laughed, low and smug. Fashion design? Come on, you buy cheap stuff, flip it online, and call that a business? If only he knew that every piece was my own design, that A-list celebrities wore my clothes on red carpets, that my supply chain was rewriting the rules of ethical fashion. Now, James, my mother cut in, not to defend me, but to soften the blow. Vicky's doing her best. We all take different paths. Charlotte set down her wine glass with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Speaking of paths, Jonathan was asking about you again. He's doing so well at the firm, and you're not getting any younger. I took a sip of the Bordeaux I'd brought, an award-winning vintage from a vineyard I quietly owned. I'm not interested, I said. My focus is on work. Work, my father echoed from the head of the table, his tone weary with years of disappointment. Vicky, when are you going to grow up? This dress-up game of yours isn't a real career. The room stilled. The annual ambush had begun. Your cousin David just bought another investment property, Uncle Robert added. Now that's smart, building real wealth. And Charlotte's husband is looking at homes in the Hamptons. My mother chimed in. A promotion. He's really making strides. I didn't respond. I'd learned silence was often more powerful than protest. Charlotte leaned in. Vicky, let's be real. Online businesses like yours don't last. It's not sustainable. It's a hobby, not a legacy. I looked at her. And what do you suggest? She swept her hand around the table. Look at everyone here. James is in finance. David's in real estate. Jonathan's in law. They're creating value, building something real. Then, louder, too loud, you're still selling clothes online, like a teenager with an Etsy page. Her words landed like darts. The room hushed. Conversations faded. Even the soft holiday jazz seemed to mute itself. Charlotte, please, my father muttered, but he didn't mean it. She was saying what they were all thinking. You're wasting your life, she continued, playing with fabric, selling to strangers. Everyone here is building legacies. What are you doing? Before I could answer, my phone rang, cutting through the tension like a knife. The custom ringtone for business calls. I glanced at the screen. Sophia Martinez, NYFW coordinator. Perfect timing. I should take this, I said, standing. Charlotte rolled her eyes. Another customer upset about a lost package? I didn't flinch. I simply hit speaker. Miss Blake, came a poised, polished voice. This is Sophia Martinez from New York Fashion Week. I'm calling on behalf of Vogue. Anna Wintour has approved a cover story featuring your billion-dollar brand. Silence. Total, absolute silence. Even the clink of cutlery ceased. Conversations at other tables stopped. The dining room froze mid-breath. Sophia continued, bright and enthusiastic. They're calling it the Invisible Revolution. How Victoria Blake quietly built the world's most sustainable fashion empire. The shoot is scheduled for January 3rd at Vogue's Manhattan studio. Charlotte's wine glass slipped in her hand. Bordeaux bled across the linen. James stared like I'd grown wings. Aunt Patricia's mouth opened and closed, wordless. I smiled gently into the phone. Thank you, Sophia. I'll have my publicist confirm the details tomorrow. I ended the call, slipped the phone into my pocket, and looked around the table. No one spoke. No one dared. Finally, I broke the silence. Now, who wants dessert? I'm at a family dinner. Of course, Victoria. Just wanted to confirm that Forbes will be running their feature next week, the $1.2 billion fashion disruptor who changed everything. Your publicist mentioned you'd be unavailable tonight, but the editors are thrilled about both stories. I ended the call slowly, lowering the phone to the table as every eye remained fixed on me. Silence. Long, thick silence. Billion, Uncle Robert finally whispered, barely audible. Vogue cover. My mother echoed like the words were foreign to her tongue. Charlotte looked ghostly pale, the sister who'd just spent the last 10 minutes lecturing me about real careers and sustainability now rendered speechless. Victoria, Aunt Patricia leaned forward, her voice a breath. What exactly do you sell? I slipped my phone back into my bag and smoothed the hem of my understated black sweater dress, ironically, one of my own designs. Sustainable fashion, Aunt Patricia. The little outfits you all mocked? They're worn by half the A-listers on the red carpet. And that online hobby? It's now the world's largest eco-conscious fashion platform. Around us, quiet murmurs spread like wildfire. People at nearby tables were whispering, piecing together the name, the phone call, the revelation. Social media was probably already lighting up, speculation brewing about the anonymous Vogue cover subject announced over Christmas dinner. But, you work from home. James sputtered. You don't even have an office. Actually, I replied smoothly. I have 12 production facilities across 4 countries, and I bought my Soho headquarters outright last year. The home office was just a cover while I scaled in silence. Charlotte finally found her voice shaky, incredulous. You've been lying to us. No, I said, calmly but firmly. I've been working. You never asked. You assumed that because you didn't understand what I was building, it wasn't worth anything. I rose slowly. The room still hushed. My dress, elegant, minimal, powerful, moved with me. None of them recognized it. They'd never thought to ask where I got my clothes. The teenager with an Etsy account now runs the fastest-growing sustainable fashion company in history. We eliminated over 2.3 million pounds of textile waste this year alone. Gasps, whispers, forks forgotten midair. I turned to leave. But then, Vicky, wait. My father's voice, low but clear. I paused at the doorway, turning back. Yes, Dad? His eyes searched mine, the bravado stripped away. How long? Since I left law school, I said simply, 8 years. The rest of dinner passed in a daze, shocked stares, hushed conversations. Somewhere between the cranberry sauce and coffee, word had spread to every corner of the house. The disappointment, it turned out, wasn't just successful, she was the fashion mogul everyone in the industry had been trying to unmask for months. Near the tree, Jonathan Weatherby approached me, the smirk gone from his face. Victoria. I had no idea. I mean, the things they're saying about your company. They're mostly true, I said, sipping my wine. I do sell clothes online, just at a scale no one in this room could have imagined. He blinked. $1 billion company, and a Vogue cover. It's not about the money, Jonathan. It's about building something that doesn't wreck the planet, or exploit the people who make our clothes. I'm proving that fashion can be both beautiful and ethical. Later that night, I sat in my father's study, reviewing emails while he stared into a half-empty brandy glass. $1 billion, he muttered again. 1, 2, I corrected gently. That's just the company's valuation. The real impact is in our supply chain, our ability to influence the way the industry thinks. He looked up. We never knew. No, I said, because you never asked. He hesitated. We should have believed in you. I met his gaze. Would you have? Or would you have pressured me to go back to law school, to marry Jonathan, to settle into the life you imagined? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. What happens now? He finally asked. I leaned back, considering. Now I keep building. The Vogue feature will bring visibility we've never had, and with it, the power to make real change. And us? He asked. Your family? I held his gaze. That depends. Are you ready to see me as I am, not who you hoped I'd become? 2 weeks later, I stood beneath the bright lights of Vogue's Manhattan studio, racks of my designs surrounding me as Annie Leibovitz prepped her next shot. Still fabric, still fashion, still me. Just no longer invisible. Anna Winter reviewed proofs on a tablet nearby. The sustainable angle is genius, she said. This industry needs more founders like you, disruptors with a conscience. My phone buzzed. Text from Charlotte. Just saw the Forbes piece. Mom's crying, Dad's showing it off at the club. I'm sorry, Vicky, I really am. I tucked the phone away. Her message sincere, but now, no longer required. Annie called for the next look. I stepped forward, slipping into a jacket made from recycled ocean plastic, a design that had taken 2 years to perfect. The flashes began. But the real story was already written, in textile waste eliminated, workers paid fairly, ecosystems protected, industries disrupted. Later that night, back at my Soho headquarters, the one no one in my family knew existed until recently, I sat reviewing next season's prototypes when my assistant knocked. The Times wants to schedule an interview about Vogue, and your mother called. She'd like a tour of the facilities. I looked up, genuinely surprised. She wants to see it? She said she wants to understand what you've built. It was a beginning. Even Charlotte had started shopping exclusively from ethical brands. Dad had moved client portfolios into ESG funds. Aunt Patricia was now lecturing her friends about green fashion like she invented it. Schedule it for Thursday, I said. Make sure they see the production floors. I want them to understand this isn't about clothes. It's about changing how the world makes things. As I worked late into the night, I realized the hobby they mocked was now employing 3,000 people. The girl they dismissed had reshaped an entire industry. And the name they used to belittle me? That was no longer mine to answer to. Because Victoria Blake doesn't build hobbies. She builds legacies, understood. And Victoria, I'm proud to be your cousin. That night, as I drove back to my penthouse, purchased discreetly through the same holding company I used to acquire our global headquarters, I let the quiet settle around me. No music, just the hum of tires on pavement and the echo of everything that had changed. Persistence, that's what had brought me here. Not luck, not trends, not approval. Just the relentless commitment to build something meaningful, even when the people closest to me couldn't see its value. The platform that began as anonymous online sales had grown into an industry force, proving that fashion didn't have to come at the planet's expense. Every organic cotton top, every recycled polyester gown, every fabric made from agricultural waste was a small rebellion against an unsustainable system. But the true revolution wasn't the technology. It was the patience, the belief, the stubborn refusal to quit. My phone rang as I pulled into the garage beneath my building. Mom. I answered, expecting formality. Instead, her voice came softly. Victoria, I just finished reading the Forbes piece. The part about the orange peel fabric, how did you even think of that? I smiled, hearing something new in her voice, genuine curiosity. Research, I said, and failure. Innovation is mostly persistence, just with better notes. She paused. Then, I'm proud of you. Not just for the success, but for staying true to your values, even when we didn't understand them. I felt that. Thanks, Mom. That means a lot. We'd like to come on Thursday for the tour. Your father's been reading everything he can about sustainable manufacturing. I think he finally gets it. The same man who once called it playing dress-up was now trying to understand supply chain ethics. I laughed. Gently. Bring him. Bring anyone who wants to see how real change is built. After we hung up, I stayed parked a moment longer, staring up at the Manhattan skyline through the windshield. Somewhere out there were the factories we'd transformed, the studios designing next season's line, the retailers rewriting their sourcing policies. The little hobby had become something far greater. An empire, yes. But also, evidence. That purpose-driven business could scale, that values could lead, that you could change the world without asking permission. 6 months later, I stood backstage at the Met Gala, making final adjustments on Emma Stone's gown, handcrafted entirely from recycled materials and destined to headline the museum's new sustainability exhibit. 5 minutes. Miss Blake, the stage manager called. I smiled to myself, thinking of the girl they once mocked for playing with swatches in her bedroom. Tonight, those swatches had become history. My phone buzzed, a group text from my family. Charlotte, OMG. Emma looks unreal. Dad, so proud of you. Victoria. Mom, you're changing the world, sweetheart. Even James chimed in with a selfie from his firm's watch party, mid-speech about ESG investing, while I helped dress Hollywood's elite in ethical fashion. Emma stepped onto the red carpet. Cameras flashed. Voices called her name. But what they were really capturing wasn't just glamour, it was transformation. A dress made from discarded materials. A woman who had refused to be discarded. Later, at the Vogue afterparty held in my honor, I was surrounded by designers, climate activists, celebrities, and CEOs, each one part of the growing movement I'd helped ignite. Anna Wintour approached with a glass of champagne. Tonight's live stream will reach over 200 million people, she said, raising her glass. The sustainable fashion conversation is officially mainstream. I accepted the toast, but my smile was quiet. It's not about the spotlight, Anna. It's about the shift. Every person who chooses ethically, who says no to fast fashion and yes to the planet, that's the real win. She studied me for a moment. You understand something most people miss. Real change isn't loud. It's built quietly, by people everyone underestimates. As the party faded into soft jazz and city lights, I stepped out onto the museum terrace, looking down at the streets of Manhattan. Below me, factories powered by renewable energy. Designers paid fairly. Shoppers choosing values over vanity. This was never about clothes. It was about reimagining how things are made. About proving that sustainability and success aren't enemies, they're partners. My phone buzzed one last time. Charlotte. Watching you tonight. I finally get it. It was never about fabric. It was about changing the world. I'm sorry it took me so long. I tucked the phone away. Forgiveness wasn't something I needed. But understanding? That meant everything. The next morning, I returned to my Soho headquarters, the building they once thought was imaginary. The design floors buzzed with energy. Samples from our next collection, made from algae fiber and plant-based leather, lined the walls. My assistant knocked. The New York Times wants a follow-up on Vogue. And your mom confirmed Thursday's tour, she said. She wants to see how it all works. I smiled. She will. Even Charlotte now shopped only from ethical brands. Dad had moved his clients into ESG portfolios. Aunt Patricia? She was now vice chair of her neighborhood's Green Council. The same people who once doubted me were now helping amplify the mission. Success had come in dollars, but also in hearts changed. I sat back, reviewing the next line's final designs. This had started with a sewing machine and a stubborn belief that clothes could do more than decorate, they could speak, influence, protect, heal. Now, it was a movement. One built stitch by stitch. Decision by decision. Victory by quiet, persistent victory. My phone buzzed again. James. My firm's launching a green initiative. Could use your input. We were wrong about you. But you were right about everything. I typed back. Happy to help. But it's Victoria now. The girl you doubted built a billion-dollar revolution. She gets to choose what you call her.